F1 racing came back after a 3-week break to a place called Zandvoort, and something many people thought would happen actually did happen. McLaren brought some new car parts that made them much faster, and Lando Norris won the race by beating Max Verstappen by 21 whole seconds. Many people thought Max had already won the championship because he didn't need to win every single race. But Norris showed everyone they were wrong. With 9 more races left in 2024, can the British driver pull off a big surprise and beat the biggest points gap after summer break in the sport's history? Everyone was amazed by how much Norris dominated the race, even though he has this habit of losing his first place position right at the first turn. Even though Zandvoort has one of the shortest distances to that first turn, Norris still lost the lead at first, but he didn't take long to pass Verstappen back, and once he did, he never looked back. Max was painfully reminded of those old boring days when Mercedes always won and he would finish 20 to 30 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton in many races. The Dutch driver is still probably going to win the championship since with 9 races left, he's still 70 points ahead. But can Norris do something magical and catch up? If so, what things does he need to go right for him? First, and most important, his car seems like a rocket ship that no other team can match right now. Many people thought Mercedes had what it takes with their newest upgrades, but their car is still having trouble competing at the front. In a weird turn of events, the Silver Arrows turned out to be only the 4th fastest car at Zandvoort, but McLaren seems to be the only team that can bring working upgrades during the middle of the season, and the fact that Norris won by 20 seconds shows this trend will probably continue for the rest of the season, as long as he doesn't mess it up too badly. To understand the whole story, we need to look at the remaining races, which are 9 total. This means if Norris somehow manages to win all 9 of them, a situation that's hard but not impossible considering how much better the McLaren car is than everyone else's, he would score 225 points. In the worst-case scenario, if Verstappen finishes second in every one of these races, the Dutchman would score 162 points. This wouldn't be enough because Norris would finish 7 points behind Verstappen. But there's a twist to the story. We still have 3 more sprint races left in 2024. This is where everything can change, and considering the fact that Norris and Verstappen finishing first and second in every race is pretty much impossible to expect, the championship can get a lot more interesting. The races that are coming, like the ones in Baku and Singapore, are tracks that don't suit the Red Bull car at all. This is something Jos Verstappen talked about, and he put more pressure on Red Bull to keep fighting with McLaren since they've obviously lost the mid-season development war. Max's father said McLaren is going like a rocket. We're doing everything we can to close the gap, but we haven't succeeded yet. I also saw this coming a bit. The updates are there but don't do much. Red Bull has to put out all the stops to improve. The title and the Drivers' Championship is not a certainty. You never have certainties. Max is doing everything he can to score as many points as possible, but it is not a certainty. Helmut Marko responded to what Jos said after the race, but he was even more negative than what the veteran Austrian had to say before the race started. While Verstappen and Perez will have more upgrades to the car, the recent worrying trend of the car getting worse is likely to continue. Marko said that even the Drivers' Championship might be out of their reach considering how fast Norris is. Of course, these could be mind games that the Austrian is playing to put more pressure on the British driver. But given how dominant the McLaren is and how close the other cars are behind him, this might not be that far-fetched. As Marko said, Norris now has the speed to catch Max in the championship. We have to find something. There's something in the pipeline. But McLaren is very fast. What this basically means is that Norris will still have a better chance at grabbing way more points than Verstappen, even though Piastri had a kind of poor race for McLaren standards, since they were hoping for a 1-2 finish in Zandvoort. We can't always count out the Aussie as much as we can count on Perez's help for Verstappen. Earlier this season, or more exactly in Budapest, McLaren were clear that Norris will need help from his teammate to fight for the championship, and that help would have been extremely useful now if Piastri managed to find the pace in the car and finish second. But that's something we'd have to wait and see in the remaining 9 races in 2024, so 24 more points are left for grabbing during the sprint races. And with how unpredictable the grid is, Norris can find some big advantage here if the McLaren stays just as good. After all, we've just finished a period of very close racing, and all of a sudden Norris gets to win a race with a 20-second advantage over Verstappen, who struggled like crazy to turn the car in certain corners and said on the radio that it doesn't respond to my inputs. If we judge the rest of the season by Zandvoort, we would think it's easier to bet on Red Bull having a worse race for Verstappen than Norris messing up, even though there are events like Monza where the Red Bull could make itself one of the fastest cars again. What's also worth mentioning is that McLaren can count on the downgrades that Red Bull keeps bringing to the car. The solution for Zandvoort in terms of the floor was an old version of the Red Bull, which is taking them months back in development, and it was still enough for them to finish second and sixth. Again, one can't help but notice the Verstappen factor once more. One that might not be enough because of how much the car struggles with balance and accepting the upgrades like it should. Martin Brundle shared his thoughts on Verstappen as the Sky F1 commentator didn't hold back when talking about how things are at the Austrian team. He said Red Bull are very lucky that they've got Verstappen at the moment. He's making the difference like he always did. If we do a little analysis, McLaren might be regretting the move they made in Hungary because they basically lost Norris 7 points in the Drivers' Championship. Realistically, the British driver should have won in races like Canada, Spain, Britain and Belgium, all of those being his and the team's strategy mistakes. Whether this will come back to hurt them later in the season, time will tell. But it's obvious that McLaren now have everything in their hands. If they want to fight Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship, the priority is clear. It has to be Norris. And there are no more team games like what they did in Hungary. The Constructor Championship looks like it's a matter of when, not if, in favor of McLaren since they are now only 30 points behind Red Bull. That was expected when the Austrian team decided to keep working with Perez for the rest of 2024. However, this might be one of the first times that the Mexican driver can't be blamed for his driving since the car just seems like an extremely poor machine that the drivers have zero trust in. As heard throughout many radio messages in the past couple of races, Helmut Marko himself called the upgrades downgrades, saying that the team has basically lost its way in trying to find more speed and performance out of the new concept. They hoped there would be a situation where they could get pace out of a design that Mercedes have called a failure in the past couple of years. Most definitely, Verstappen would be looking for a way out if the car continues to be an underperforming machine like it is right now. But given the fact that Verstappen is getting the maximum out of it, we should be looking at a very close championship in 2024. The same can't be said for 2025 though. Most of the teams have already focused on next year, and even though this one might give us some interesting plot twists, once everything restarts in 2025 and the cars are more or less the same as the ones we have right now, then Verstappen would have an extremely hard time fighting for the championship with cars that will be way faster than Red Bull if the Austrian team continues with the downgrades. But with all of this in mind, do you think that Verstappen and Red Bull will have a real battle on their hands in the Drivers' Championship? And if so, do you think that Norris has what it takes to handle the pressure from the Dutchman, as well as the fact that he can win a championship in his career? If he continues to be perfect in the remaining 9 races in 2024, let us know in the comments below. And once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.